Hello and welcome to another episode of the Queer Voices Sport podcast. Today I'm joined by two members of Cymric Netball Clwb. I've got with me Chloe Rose, and the roles that you've got are quite extensive within the club. I was gonna get you to introduce your roles, but head coach, social media officer, and kit and equipment officer.
Yes,
that's quite a lot to manage. We'll come on to that in a sec. And Alex Wise, inclusion officer at the club. Chloe, just starting with you first, are you able to give us a bit of info about your role with the club, how you got involved, and what your involvement looks like?
Yeah, sure. So obviously, I'm one of the co-founders of the club as well. It was myself and my partner Helen, who is the chair. She couldn't be here today. But everyone's always asked me, will I start a netball club? Will I do this? Because I've been involved with netball since I was in primary school. Okay. So it's quite a long-term thing for me. And I just thought, you know what, why am I not doing it? I've been involved with loads of different clubs, and there's been lots of things that have gone on where I haven't necessarily agreed with them. But when you don't have control over it, it's very difficult. So I thought, well, if we do our own, we can make it better for everyone as well. And then obviously Helen helped me. So that's how we started it. So I am the head coach. I'm also the A team coach, which is the top team at the minute. So I oversee the B team coach and the C team coach and the training partners coach. What other ones have I got? Social media officer. I'm very picky with social media. I think that's why I was chosen to do it. I think I'm borderline OCD with certain things. I just like it done a certain way, and Alex is laughing because she knows exactly what I'm like. So I deal with everything on social media to do with the club. And then obviously the kit and equipment officer, I've designed all the kit that we've now got. I've sourced all that, and then all the equipment that we have comes through me. So that's pretty much my role in the club.
So pretty extensive.
Busy.
I'm surprised you have time for anything else with all of that. And you said there at the start about being involved with other clubs where things hadn't quite gone the way you wanted. Do you feel like having set up a Cymric Netball Clwb that you've been able to create the kind of club that you always wanted to be a part of?
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously we've had a chance now to rectify those mistakes and make it a better club. And I'm sure most teams will agree in our current league that since we've started, we've seen a change in a lot of other teams as well, which is nice. The biggest one I would say on social media, there's a lot more clubs now in the league that have come on social media, are sharing things as well. And not just like little things, but they'll share big topics. Like, for example, we've got the Wear Black and Pink for Training Wednesday, which is in support of the anti-homophobia, isn't it, with the football. And you'll see that other clubs now will start to share things like that, which is really important for us. So it's just gaining a bigger audience as well in that sense. So if you want to add anything?
No. I like what you said so far. To be honest, I came into the club, but you were already established, weren't you? So, which is why I came along in the first place. So I don't really know the origin story so much about why it came about. I just know that I was looking for a queer, supportive club. I've always wanted to play netball. I knew I was loath to go towards with a sport that is so attached to cisgendered women. I was loath to go just to my local club because I didn't think I would have the support or the backing potentially. And so I went purposefully looking for a queer netball club, and you guys popped up.
I'm very glad that you found us anyway.
So,
how long did that process of looking for a queer-friendly club take?
There's not many openly queer sports groups, full stop. Yeah. Especially in South Wales. So it doesn't take long within a network of queer people before you find someone that goes, this is a queer-friendly group. So I think it didn't take me long, to be honest, to find Cymric because they stand out as being so openly supportive of queer people and diversity in general. And yeah, I reached out, was welcomed with open arms as we should be, but and it should be normal to be welcomed like that. But the anxiety when I first messaged was unreal. Yeah, it was really. I'm grateful of you and Helen for setting up the club, to be honest.
With that anxiety that you felt with that first message, did you spend quite a long time kind of composing a message, contemplating what you sent, or was
Absolutely. No, I'm an overthinker. So I think I had the message in my drafts for about 2 or 3 weeks before I actually sent the message. The first one saying, "Hey, look, this is my situation. Can I come along to you guys?" It was, and to be honest, I've always wanted to play netball from primary school, but I have to confess I didn't know much about netball.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I knew it was a sport I always wanted to play. It was a sport that really excited me. I watched it in the Commonwealth and at that sort of higher level, but the inner workings of how clubs operate is something I didn't know anything about. I didn't know the seasons, when would be in season, when would be off season, what training would look like. So the first message pretty much was, "Hey, I'd like to get involved," pretty much, and like, how do I do that? It was very much overthought and overprocessed.
Yeah, I can understand that. Can you describe the feeling of relief when you were then welcomed into the club, what that felt like for you?
Yeah, so I think, so the first time I actually physically attended something with you guys was an avenue of the Cymric Club that's sort of net active. So it's like a back. How would you describe net active? It's a back to netball.
Yeah, it's sort of similar to back to netball. So it's basically for beginners who, similar to Alex, have a bit of anxiety about coming into a group, because obviously on social media we look quite competitive and you see the scores, and it can be off-putting for people if they're new to the sport. So we decided to create Net Active, which is more just about building your fitness up before you can then progress on to something else. And it's just a different environment then for people, and a more relaxed one.
Much more relaxed.
So that's what you came to originally, wasn't it?
So I came to a Net Active session, and oh my God. Cymric is based in Ebervale. I live in Treorchy in the Rhondda, so I was driving for about an hour to get there. And it was just like I was getting closer and closer. I parked up a good half an hour before I had to come in, and just sat in the car and had to give myself an absolute pep talk. So last year was for me a big sort of voyage of discovery, sort of confirmation of my own identity, my own little journey. And so sitting there, and I just eventually had to go give myself a good talk and say, right, put your big girl pants on and get in there. And I was met by this beaming, smiling Helen. And it was Helen first.
Yeah.
Jem, and everybody was just so happy to see me. I just instantly just forgot all of my nerves. I just thought, this is the club. This is where I belong. And I haven't really looked back since. Just sort of thrown myself into everything.
That's awesome to hear. That's really good.
Yeah.
How long ago was that?
That was July.
Yeah, and
July, because it was just before trials. Because then I came along to the trials.
Yes, and you helped us do the admin side of the trials. Yeah.
The way you're describing it, I thought this was maybe 3-4 years ago, because you were talking with such kind of like comfort about being in a club, and as though. Yeah, you've been involved for years. That's interesting to hear. It's actually quite recent.
Really, really recent. And I think the fact that I feel so comfortable within the club is because everybody in the club is so welcoming. I think you don't join Cymric unless you are aware of what our values are. And our values are very much at the core of the group, of what the team is. We have policies, various different policies to protect vulnerable people, and that everybody's signed up to that. Everybody agrees to that when they become a member of Cymric, and I think that is really important to create that safe space. And it's from that safe space I've developed the confidence in myself and my own identity to talk about it in such a way that you thought it was years. Because of those sort of checks and safeguards and safe space.
Yeah, I was actually looking through that document that players receive when they join the club, and the code of conduct and stuff like that. And it just looks so well thought out. The core values that you've got as absolutely integral to everything that the club does. And I think that's really good to see. I think, all sports clubs should have that kind of philosophy. But it's great to see that so clearly at the kind of the joining point for anyone.
Yeah, and I will say that is credit to Helen. She spent a lot of time on that, and we've actually had outside clubs then ask us for a copy so they can rewrite all these, which is nice because, like you said, clubs should have it anyway, but a lot of them don't. So yeah, I will say credit to Helen on that one because she did spend an awful lot of work on it.
And I think for me, it feels very much like in this club, it's inclusion first, sport second. And I think for a lot of other clubs, it's sport first, inclusion second.
If it's even second.
Yes,
for a lot of
exactly.
clubs.
And so the fact that it was that my inclusion in the club came above all else. I haven't played competitively for the club, mainly because there's a whole wealth of learning I've got to do within picking up a completely new sport that I've never played before. But I've been included, even so. So we've got training partners which are trained with the C team, and again, your training partners aren't competitive. We come along, but we still have quality training sessions, but we're as included or it feels as though we're as included as the A team, and if there's I'm on the committee now. Like you were, Helen and yourself embed people within the team, and you become invested in the project, and I think that's the way to foster sort of inclusion.
And talking about that embedding, was the decision for you to become the inclusion officer, was that something that you saw as an opportunity and you decided that you wanted to go for, or was that within the club you approached Alex?
So Helen and Chloe are two of the most persuasive, very different. They have very different tactics for it.
Okay.
But they are two of the most persuasive people you will ever meet. And so I don't really feel like I had much option. I was asked by Helen to be part of the committee. She saw a gap, an opportunity with the skills I might have that I can bring to the club, and she seized on that opportunity. And yeah, it's a no-brainer for me if I can, as an openly and proud trans person, if I can change one person's, two people's opinion of trans people, especially within sport, then that's mission success for me. And so being part of the committee is an opportunity for me to change those people's perspectives, and fingers crossed. I know I've changed at least one person's perspective. So yeah, we'll keep going. We'll keep changing people's opinions.
Chloe, just talk us through what was the approach that you and Helen decided to go for to get Alex to take on the role?
Obviously, we can see what certain people bring to the table, and we could see Alex's confidence wasn't necessarily as high as it should be for what she brings. And I think it's just about giving her that confidence. We can see we're relatively good with people reading, and you could see we know Alex wants to be involved, but she hasn't quite got the confidence to push herself forward. So it's just about giving her that little push. And you've done fab already, and like you said, we've already had that one person that you had that experience with, and that was really nice, and you took a lot from that as well. And it was just nice from our perspective as a club that we are seeing changes in people, and they shouldn't even have that opinion in the first place, but we're all aware that people do have it. It's just about educating them and then hopefully changing their minds on it, which in this case did work, didn't it? And it was really nice to see.
And had you had an inclusion officer within the club before, or is this a new step that you took?
Helen was sort of covering it because obviously that's her background as well. But there's quite a lot of things that she does in the club as well. So we just brought Alex on board as well because obviously you've got different expertise to Helen as well. And you just strengthened that position, and it just helps us to be better in future. And I do feel like you've pointed out things as well that we can already put into place, which we appreciate as a club. And we know all the members are appreciative of it as well. Okay,
so just winding back a little bit then, Chloe, to when you started the club, was it just you and Helen that kind of came up with it, or were there more people involved? And you said about being involved in other clubs where things hadn't quite worked the way you would have wanted them to, but was there a particular catalyst that made you go, right, this is what we're going to do?
It was me and Helen, and also there's the B team coach Sarah as well. So she's a long-term friend of mine, and she's been in several clubs with me and experienced all those things with me as well. And between the three of us, we knew we had enough experience behind us to start a club and be successful. And obviously we know quite a lot of the parents involved, and those were the ones who had always said to us, oh, are you ever going to start a club? Are you going to do this? We want our kids to come to you and stuff like that. But it was more so the confidence for me of actually branching out, because the netball world can be quite a scary place. It's very cliquey, I would say. And as I said, I've been involved with it for so long. I've seen so many things. And that was the reason really we wanted to do Cymric, because we didn't feel netball should be like that. And it's not what it's about. And it's sort of become that way. And we didn't necessarily agree with it. So yeah, I think we just all got together and was like, why don't we just do it? I had come back from having my son a couple of years back. I didn't know Helen at this point. And I went back into a club and it was just completely new, and I just felt completely pushed out by it. And I was a single mother at the time, and it was really difficult, and obviously that knocks your confidence as well. So I think I was just at an all-point low, and then obviously things got better once I met Helen, and it was just a confidence thing then of really looking to start it, and then we haven't looked back ever since, really.
And you train up in Ebervale. Is that where the club's always been based?
Yes. So I live in Ebervale as well. Most of our members live in Ebervale and Abergavenny, with the exception of Alex. But yeah, like we said, everyone is welcome to the club, regardless of where you are. It's just that was the most convenient for the people who set the club up at the time. And we felt like there was a gap in that particular area for what we offer.
So you play your matches there as well?
No, our matches are played in Cwmbran Stadium on a Saturday at the minute.
Okay.
But the league has games on a Monday as well. But then quite a lot of our members are involved in different leagues as well, which play in Cardiff and USW down. That's near you, actually, isn't it? Yeah.
Having set up the club, how did you go about getting them into a league?
So obviously, because I've been involved in it for so long, I know quite a lot of people in netball, which has done us a favour. So we just decided to email the league that I had always played in since I was little and just ask them for a spot. And with the calibre of players that we had attracted, we knew that we wouldn't necessarily be the level of the bottom division, but we understood the process that you would have to start from the bottom and work your way up, which is absolutely fine by us. A lot of us don't play for the competitive side of it. We just play because we enjoy the sport. So we didn't necessarily mind starting at the bottom and building our way up. But it's actually found that a lot of the members actually prefer the lower divisions now because they enjoy it more and it's less pressure. So yeah, that's how we started in that league and division, but I don't think we've got any plans to join a different league at the minute, because this one seems to be working well for everyone involved.
And you were saying about having the A team and the C teams, the B team as well. How quickly did you kind of go up from just the one original team to the three teams you've got now? Yeah,
so this is how Training Partners came about as well, because obviously there's only so many teams you can enter the league every year, because they have to have the room, etc. and stuff like that. So initially we started with an A's and B's, but we filled the teams quite quickly and we ended up having to have a larger squads in both teams, which isn't ideal really, but we didn't want to turn people away. And then we obviously went to A's, B's and C's and again filled the teams really quickly. So we were like, okay, we need to do something else now. So that's when Training Partners came about, because we weren't allowed another team into the league, and we didn't want to turn people away again. So we thought, well, why don't you just train alongside our C's? So they're still getting the coaching, and like you said, you're still getting the quality of training. We just can't offer you matches at the minute, but we have already requested an extra team for next year. So hopefully we'll have A's, B's, C's, D's and Training Partners next year. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, that's fantastic to be growing at that rate. And do you think that growth is because the netball playing community is underserved by the number of teams that there are within South Wales, or do you think that there's something that you as Cymric Netball Club are doing that means that people particularly want to join you?
Yeah, I think it's what we offer, to be honest. Quite a the new people that have joined have all said the same thing, oh, you're so different to every other netball club. And I think it's just because we're not just about netball. Like, we do actually have a care for you, and we do form friendships and connections outside of netball. So it's not as if like you're just turning up to netball, you can't really speak to anyone. And like we said, we know we've got A's, B's, C's and training partners, but we like to treat everyone equally, and we don't necessarily view it as one team is better than the other. And I'm quite clear with that in quite a lot of messages. So, Alex often tells me I'm quite direct with it, but I find that the best way to approach a situation like that, because there's just no muddy clouds or anything. Nobody can say anything. So I do think it's about what we offer as a club, and just the support that we give outside of netball as well, I would say.
Yeah.
With the Welsh name, kind of how central to the club's identity is that Cymric element?
Yeah, like obviously the colours as well are all Welsh. I'm obviously Welsh. All of our members, apart from one, are Welsh as well. So it's just about an identity sort of thing as well for us. And when I designed the logo, we all specifically had in mind we want the Welsh colours. There's no other team in our league that I'm aware of with netball that has the same sort of meaning behind it and the colours in it as well. So again, it just made us something different to what had already been done.
Yeah, do you think you've attracted more Welsh speakers as a result to the club?
I think there's been a change in attitude with people saying, oh, I'd love to learn Welsh, whereas I don't even think that's even a conversation in other clubs. And like a lot of us are very basic Welsh speakers, and we'll quite happily admit that to you. Like, we're not fluent at all. But there's a lot of conversations around the interest of learning to speak Welsh.
And then you said about the calibre of the players that you've got. Have you got any Welsh Feathers or Cardiff Dragons or...
No, so not of that calibre, unfortunately. But quite a lot of ours have played county level. Myself and Emily have played the National League and things like that. And it's actually a different story to netball. So I've never wanted to go further in the netball career because of the cliques and how I was made to feel at a younger age in Welsh trials and things like that. So I sort of took a backseat on that then and never wanted to go any further with it. And again, that's what drove me to make Cymric, because I feel like if we can stand out for a different reason, I would rather be involved in that than just go along with something that I wasn't really comfortable in. But a lot of our players played in the South East League in the Premier Division, and I was really appreciative that they took the drop of 3 divisions to join us and have now stayed with us for the long run and hoping to get back up there eventually. So yeah, that's what I mean by calibre of players.
Yeah.
Sadly not the Dragons and Welsh Feathers, but I'm more than happy with what we've got.
Well, and who knows, one day if the club keeps growing,
you
people
never know.
come through and end up at that level. Alex, for you, with what Chloe was saying there about the kind of clickiness, had you been involved in sports before you started playing netball, and had you had experiences like that?
Yeah, so I've been involved in sport since I was 5 years old, but my initial chosen sport was was cycling.
Okay.
So yeah, I've been very heavily involved in cycling, and I got to a high level within cycling. But I experienced sport very differently to how I experience sport now. Post-transition, and I think that as a cis het presenting male in sport, it's much easier, and I don't think the fights that you have to have aren't there. I've had my eyes opened a little bit. Some of our younger players are moving forward in netball, and some of the support isn't there that I would have expected to be there for the same level. When I look back at my experience, and we're talking 20 years ago, the sport was already there through British cycling, Welsh cycling, that it just isn't there primarily because it's women's sport, and there's this massive gulf between men's sport and women's sport. And I think I come at it with a very unique lens in that I've experienced both sides of sport now. And it's definitely something that needs to be challenged and needs to be changed.
In that cycling space, while you were participating, were you competing, were you beginning to transition at that point? Were you?
No. I internalised sort of transphobia, internalised homophobia through growing up in the 90s and the noughties. very much made coming out really difficult. It was a real personal challenge for me. And I had a lot of preconceptions as to how I would be treated, coupled with how the media and how it was seen in the last, I would say, 5 to 10 years, the change towards the hostility towards trans people. I think I couldn't see how I could ever be back in sport as a trans woman. And so I very much made my peace, walked away from sport completely, was quite happy. Was I quite happy? That's the wrong word. I was okay with walking away from sport. I didn't realise how much I depended on sport and physical activity for my mental health. And so I encountered a lot of mental health struggles. And last year, I first got back into sport via running, and got involved with the Cardiff Foxes, which is a queer running group. And from then, I realised how much sport meant to me. Having the discipline, having the physical tiredness stopped my brain whirring at 100 mile an hour quite so much. And so that's when I realised that I needed to find another sport that I could throw myself into that was more structured than running per se. The Cardiff Foxes, I owe a lot to the Cardiff Foxes for kickstarting my journey, but I needed a sport that needed me to be disciplined, needed me to turn up on time to places, required a level of self-discipline, and also had an element that I needed to learn something new. Without sounding big-headed, I could jump on a bike and I can cycle. And give me a couple of months of training, I could get to a reasonably good level again because the muscle memory's there. I've done that since I was 5 years old. And I imagine it's probably the same with you. If with netball, you could take a long break out, give you a couple of months back with a netball, and you'd be back at it. So I didn't want that. That wouldn't be the challenge. Cycling wouldn't be the challenge I needed. And so, yeah, that's why I sort of went down the netball route.
What kind of level did you get to in cycling?
I raced abroad. I would sort of semi-professionally. So
with Baker Cymru or with UK cycling?
So I was always on the cusp of British cycling. So I was on the Olympic Development Programme, and I was always on the cusp of that. Never quite got onto the under-23s programme for one reason or another. And so went across to Europe where the racing scene was much, much better. I got funding from a charity, it's a charity called the Dave Rayner Fund, who was paying for me to be out in Belgium, paid for me to be out in France, racing full time. So that was my job, was racing. So that's the sort of level I got to.
Yeah, so we're not talking about just giving up a hobby.
No.
We're talking about something that was your way of life. Like
pretty much, yeah.
Central to your identity that you had to come to terms with losing.
Yeah.
What sort of time frame are we talking about in terms of how long did you have to go without sport in your life from giving up cycling to joining the Foxes?
So we're talking about 10 years.
That's an incredibly long time.
Yeah, it's a significant length of time.
Yeah.
And I had a lot of. I don't think you ever come to these conclusions quickly about when it comes to your identity, whether that's your gender identity, whether that's your sexual orientation. You don't come to these conclusions quickly. They take a long period of process, and they take a different length of time for different people. For me, I had to overcome a lot of internalized issues and a lot of problems with my own perception of myself. And coupled with a few other complications I don't want to go into, it was a process of probably of a decade of coming to terms with everything before I felt able to come out and be myself. And then it was about a year before from starting transition, or where I class my transition to have started. It was about a year before I started the netball.
Yeah, I mean, that's a journey that you have to take at your own pace, and it's really good that you were able to kind of to take the time that you needed to. But yeah, I can't imagine having to not be involved in sport for all that time. I just wondered whether, when you said that you'd always wanted to play netball, was the fact that it's a women's sport and then your gender identity, were they linked, do you think, and why netball particularly appealed to you?
That's a very good question. It's not one I'd really thought about, to be honest. I've battled with my gender identity since I first became aware of gender. So we're talking 6, 7 years old. I can pinpoint the exact moment that I first questioned my gender, and that was when we were reading a story that had gender non-conforming within it, and we're talking in the 90s, okay? So I have had issues and I've battled my identity for my entire life. So to separate my desire to do any one thing from that internal conflict is almost impossible. That internal conflict has shaped me and shaped my identity so much that I just don't think I could give you a definitive answer. Sorry. But I definitely think it probably had something to do with it, yeah.
That's absolutely fine not to give me a definitive answer. But I was just interested whether that had been...
It's not something I'm probably going to go away and think about this now. You've asked me something I've not ever asked myself. You're probably right. I think, a sport that was, especially in the 90s and the early noughties, was very female-dominated. I think it's definitely something that probably had a factor, because that's who I wanted to be and where I wanted to play. I didn't want to be on the rugby field, the hockey field, the football field, because that's not where I identified.
You've obviously said about the message to Cymric Netball Clwb sitting in your drafts for a few weeks, and the pep talk you gave yourself before that first session. Do you think you would have been able to do those things if you hadn't been involved with the Foxes first?
No, not at all. The confidence that I got, I think, from just being accepted. I've developed I can't swear in this podcast.
You can swear.
I can swear. Yeah. So I've developed an attitude of "fuck it, I'm trans," and
I love that attitude.
That is how I view my life. So yes, people might know I'm not aiming to pass. So I'm not aiming to not be identified as trans. If someone doesn't know because of how I presented, then that's fine. But I'm not going to walk away from my trans identity. That came about because of how accepted I was by the Cardiff Foxes. And it's from being able to walk with my head held high into situations that enabled me and empowered me to walk into the Cymric Netball, and enables me to walk into Cumbrian Stadium and score or duty or whatever. And I'm well aware that the first couple of times I did that, people were looking. You know, like you see it. You know when people are talking behind your back. You see it. I know the first few times I walked into that stadium, if I hadn't have developed that "fuck it, I'm trans" attitude, I probably wouldn't have come back. Now I'm pretty much just part of the fabric of Saturdays in Cumbrian, aren't I?
Yes.
Me and my kids are pretty much a routine face now, and I don't get the looks. In fact, if anything, people stop, they talk to me. I think there's more looks if I'm not there on a Saturday, to be honest.
Yeah, they see us and expect you to be with us. Yeah.
And so that's lovely, I think.
Yeah, that's really nice to hear. I mean, it's tough that kind of the trailblazers in the trans movement and then the wider LGBTQ pride movement have to have that sort of tough skin and fuck it kind of attitude. Yeah. But I think anyone that does should remember that they're hopefully making that path easier for all the people that come.
I'd love that. I'd love for another trans person to approach our socials and say, I've listened to your podcast, or I've seen you in Cymran, or whatever it is. I'd like to come along to a training session. I would be over the moon with that. And not just trans, any gender minority is welcome within the club, and we will make a space for them in the club. And that's important. It's not just the trans debate. We, especially as a trans woman, we seem to dominate the discussions. But if you want to play netball, come along and we'll make a space available for you. Wherever and whatever that looks like, we'll make a space for you. And you've got a voice within the community.
The first thing that you see when you go on the club Instagram, in the bio, along with the Welsh colours and the sheep, are proud to play, and then the pride and the trans flags. Right from the start, was that essential to your identity as a club?
Yes, exactly. So we sort of adopted that straight away. So we always use the hashtag now proud to play and inclusive by design. There are two consistent hashtags on all of our social media posts. And during the mixed tournaments, we send an email out to each team and we encourage them to tag photos on the day with the hashtag proud to play. And that was the first thing that we even wrote on there. There was no question about that in our minds. And like we said, we want a safe space for everyone to enjoy the sport. Like we don't care your background story. We're not interested about any of that. We just want to help you to enjoy the sport that we get so much from. And I think that was one of the most important things to us. And obviously with me and Helen being a partnership as well, we were a little bit at first, how is this going to be perceived? Two queer people setting up a netball club. But we've had, unfortunately for us, we haven't had backlash in the sense of that. We've never had any hate on the page or anything like that. And like you said, because we've got such thorough policies and everyone signs up to that before they even come to the club and they're aware of the message we send, we don't then allow for anything to deter from what we've already set out in the first place. Yeah. So I think that was really important to us.
I think you touched on the fact that we haven't had any real kickback.
No.
Because I remember a couple of months ago I said to you, didn't I, we need to be wary with my own personal sort of view of the hostilities out there at the moment. I gave you the heads up. I was like, you might need to be a bit wary. And you were like, nah, there's nothing. We're not getting the hate.
I think it was about one of the trans posts, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
And I will post whatever I want to on the social media. I'm quite naive in that sense. I don't really think about what I'm going to get back because I'll deal with that because it doesn't change what we're doing. So I don't really care what hate you want to send us. We're going to carry on doing what we're doing. So I think I put a story up about the trans comment and Alex was like, oh, I think you just need to be a little bit careful. And I was like, no, absolutely not. This is what our platform is for. That's the intention. And like you said, we're not going to stray from that. That's what we've set out to do and that's what we're going to do. We're not going to be bullied out of it by people who don't share the same thoughts as us, really.
Well, it's great to hear that is across the LGBTQ bit of the community, that it's not just that you don't get the backlash on LGB because it's a women's sport, and I traditionally have, kind of looking back, have always felt more comfortable as a queer man in spaces with women than with het men. Felt more included, more supported, and so it kind of doesn't feel like it's a surprise to me that element wouldn't have the same kind of backlash that, for example, the Cardiff Lions sometimes get on their social media as a rugby side. But then to hear that the whole LGBTQ part of the club is isn't getting that backlash is great, because as you mentioned, trans women are used as that focal point in the anti-trans in sport movement.
Yeah.
Do you think there's something about netball as a sport that has kind of helped with that understanding and that lack of hostility?
I'm not sure. I'm sure people involved with netball have their opinion silently and don't necessarily look to give it out. And I might just be blissfully unaware of comments that are being made. And like I said, because I've been so involved in it for so long, I already have a good relationship with a lot of people in netball. And I don't think they would then even say anything negative about what I'm doing with it. I don't know if you feel any differently with that.
I don't know. I haven't had any back. As I said, first time I walked in there, people were looking. But then, you touched on the cliques and side of things. I'm new. I'm not. A lot of the club members are already. I've been playing for 10 years or so. So maybe they were looking because I was a new person, or it was because I was trans. But I certainly have never had any issues. Nobody's said anything to me. I've never heard anything passively aggressively said behind my back at all.
I do think our mixed netball tournaments have helped quite a lot, because obviously we get a lot of men playing in that, and they absolutely love netball, and it's really nice to see from our perspective. And everyone, there's no comments ever made, even when you stand on court next to someone. There's never been any, and you've played in a mixed tournament, we've never had any backlash even there from the men as well, because obviously you touched on different experiences with women in sport, but that's in a mixed environment and we're still not getting it there, which is great for us. But I do think that's helped with the attitude towards everyone being included in netball.
And just going back to you saying about the inclusion by design, I think that's really important, because there's a lot of people that just think, well, if we're not being homophobic or transphobic, then we are an inclusive club or organisation. But it really has to be written into everything you do, stitched into everything that you do as an organisation. How do you and is this part of your role, Alex, to ensure that all the communications that go out about the club, everything you do at training, everything you do on match day, ensures that people feel included?
I think most of that's still dealt with by yourself, because so much of everything goes out via the social media.
Yes.
But I would say that allyship, because we're an inclusive club, but we're not exclusively queer, and so allyship goes beyond, or proactive allyship. So it's not just about being passively not homophobic. It's about actively being anti-homophobic. It's about being anti-queerphobic. So a phrase I often say is that I don't ask a lot from my friends, other than to stand up for rooms stand up for me in rooms I'm not in, and that's what, for me, being anti-homophobic is about. It's not good enough just to not be homophobic yourself. That's easy. That's easy. That's just called respect. But to actively stand up and say this isn't right, or this conversation isn't right, that's the bit, that active allyship. That's what, for me, the inclusive by design means. It means that everybody in Cymric, and I've had it said to me so many times when I've raised concern I might be a bit nervous in a certain situation, every one of those women go, well, I've got your back. If anybody says anything, there's been a few choice comments about if somebody says something to me, that what's going to happen.
Very protective.
Very protective. But that's active allyship. That's what we want. That's what the queer community needs, and that's how you promote a safe space. It's not good enough just to not be homophobic.
And I think a lot of people as well just stick a pride flag on things and think that's enough, and it's really not. So, yeah, I think I agree with what you're saying on that.
When you get new players joining, kind of roughly how many of them would you say specifically mention that inclusive nature of the club when they are talking about the decisions that led them to get involved?
I think we rely heavily on word of mouth as well. So a lot of the conversations are coming in, oh, someone's told us this about the club. And it's not always the inclusion side of it, but more so focused on the support that we give. I would say the majority of our newbies, it has all been heavily focused on the little things that we do. And I know with me specifically, with my teams, like there's little things, like for example, during our training then for Valentine's Day, I've got everyone to pick a person out of the hat and they have to write one thing they love about that person and we'll read it out in training. And I've done everyone all like little Valentine's sweet bags and little things like that. So, you know, someone might be having an awful day and that little tiny thing that we're doing might then give them that little bit of support that they need. And I feel like we offer that. Not many other clubs do that. I get a row off Helen for doing it because I use my own money, but I just think that's why I wanted to set the club up, and I'm not going to let anyone stop me doing it, basically. But yeah, I do think it's the support that we give is the main focus of the points that come across when newbies are joining us. We do get the odd people that mention the inclusion, which, you know, we're hoping to grow more because of that. But it is still nice that the support is recognised as well.
Do you think, kind of like the teams you play, do you think that they notice that when they're on their bench and you're in yours between periods and stuff? And do you think they see that?
We've had comments made to us about that, like, oh, the way you speak to people, like the way you address your team, because there's a lot of arguments going on with other teams on the side in certain games. And, you know, we understand people get fiery and we sit and say things, but we all know as well that whatever is said on court at the time, you leave off court and that's left on court. That's sport at the end of the day. We all know that. But I think a lot of people see things on our social media as well, and then they come to us and be like, oh, our club doesn't do that. And I think they want them to do it. It's just not put into their clubs, I would say.
Yeah, and sometimes that's a difficulty, isn't it, when you're a club that's just following the tradition of the sport that you're in. Those traditions come from a time where inclusion really wasn't thought about, and support wasn't. It was just, you need to perform and you're expected to do that. We shouldn't have to help you and you know, think about your mental well-being as part of that. And I guess one of the great opportunities of being a club that was set up for the reasons you created it is that you look at things in a more modern way, a new way, and build in those positive traits to the club. Kind of going forward, what would it look like for you, Alex? Obviously, you are a very talented athlete from your background in cycling. You are still fairly new to netball, but as you use the training partners,
yes,
and get to the point where you're being selected for C team, B team, A team.
Oh God,
what do you know what there is kind of built in with the league in terms of ensuring that you are able to play in that league?
So I think that's a discussion that needs to happen in the off season. Okay. Because I don't think that discussion has happened yet. Not that I wouldn't be accepted within, and in fact, I'm fairly sure that it would be okay if I was to be selected for any of the teams. I'm fairly sure it would be okay. It's just not a conversation I'm aware that we have had with the league at any point, or the league has had to address. I mean, you may get inundated with comments in this, but I'm fairly sure I'm one of the only, if not the only, openly trans netball player in that league, or in a team that's associated with that league. So it's not a conversation they've had to have yet, and we've not really thought about the implications of what that would look like if I was to play. But I'd like to be selected for a team next year.
It's giving me the eyes there. That decision.
I got a trial first, but I would like to get to a point with the help and support of the training partners coach to get me to a point where I would be selected for one of the potentially 4 teams next year.
I think we are lucky as well. Helen's recently been selected to be vice chair of the league. Okay. So we know we've got someone fighting our corner as well within that league setup. So I think we are extremely lucky to have that. And obviously we don't have any doubts that you will get to play in that league, which is exciting. And I think we've had a conversation once before where you were quite nervous and like I said, I'm quite naive to all that sort of backlash that you get. But I said to you, someone has to be the leader and lead the way. And if that's you, that's great.
Yeah.
And I think that really resonated with you then as well, didn't it?
Yeah.
That is how you get netball courts named after you and stuff like that. So.
Yeah.
Oh my God, Slay, that would be amazing. No, I think, as I touched on earlier, for me, I'm not ashamed of my trans identity. I will not hide my trans identity. If I can play netball and encourage one other person who either thinks sport isn't for them because they're trans, has given up sport like I did because they didn't think it would be welcoming, and they put on a pair of trainers and turn up to a session, one of ours hopefully, then mission accomplished. And that's why I would trailblaze, is for that reason. It does take a lot of mental it's a lot of mental load preparing yourself to be the first to do something. I hate the term like forerunner or pioneer or any of those terms. I'd shy away from those things. That's not my personality to be labelled those things. But I would like to do it to promote the inclusion within the sport. And if I can get that one extra person to come along, that would be amazing.
And is the league affiliated to Welsh Netball?
Yes.
And have Welsh Netball communicated policies around trans inclusion?
Helen is the EDI for Wales Netball as well.
Okay.
So,
she's a busy lady.
She
Yes,
is a very busy
busy.
lady. She's also on the FA Wales board as well. So again, we know we've got people fighting our corner in the right places as well. So I believe she's in the process of writing policies, isn't she, to do with that as well, which is good.
I mean, one of the arguments that is most put out there by anti-trans activists about trans inclusion in sport is that women's sport provides a safe space for cisgender women to be active and not feel that there are men around them or anyone who's not a cisgender woman. Netball, obviously, traditionally women's only sport, might kind of cling on to that more than maybe women's football, where often that team will have trained next to the men's football team or a women's rugby team in a similar situation. Do you think that is going to be a kind of an obstacle that is going to be harder to break through with netball, or do you think because of people like Helen being involved at that level that actually the future's looking
I think
positive?
Helen's had a positive impact so far with the little amount of time she's had, so it's exciting to see what the future brings for her in that role. I do think Wales are behind England with regards to men's netball. Like, there is a mixed netball league in England already, which runs really well actually, and I know Wales Netball are keen to do it over here as well. But when you look at teams like the Australian men's team and things like that, they are just phenomenal. So I just think we're a little bit behind in that sense. But if we can bring some of that sort of attitude into it, I think it would help it massively. But yeah, I don't know how you feel, but I do think it's positive to have Helen on there.
No, Helen's going to be, she is a force, and she will definitely make the right moves. As far as what the gender critical people might come up with about safe spaces, I would challenge any of them to walk into a Cymric training session and ask any of those cis women if they felt safe around me, and you'll find your answer. Because I don't tend to give much time, and I don't devote much energy to dealing with gender critical criticisms, if you can call them that, because they don't hold any water when you're actually shine a light to them. When you're actually, as a trans person, going out into sport and you actually meet real people and you play sport with real people, none of their criticisms match up, okay? I'm still aching from this, but we had a HIIT session training on Wednesday, okay? I discovered muscle groups I didn't know I had. And I ached in places I didn't know I could possibly ache. But I wasn't the strongest. I wasn't the fastest. I wasn't the tallest. And I'm a long way from being even close to the best. I'm not taking away somebody's space. I'm not dominating. I'm not putting anybody at risk. The only risk on that netball court to myself is myself, to be honest. And so when you actually go out into real life and play sport, sorry, you told me not to tap on the desk.
It's quite right. You're making a key point. So.
When you go out into the real world and play sport as a trans person, you'll soon realise that all of those hyperbole that the gender critical bang on about doesn't exist. It only exists in their heads. That's where their unfair advantage lies. If I could spend as much time on the netball court as I spend in transphobes' heads, I'd be a much fitter person than I am now because I live there rent-free.
It's just not based on any evidence either, is it? Like you said, it's just an assumption they've created and there's nothing to back it up at all, because when you actually look at it, it's not right.
No, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, safe spaces for women are absolutely critical, but it's not trans women that are preventing those safe 100%. Spaces from existing.
Yeah. The idea that I will have gone through everything I've gone through in the last 10 years. I've only been socially and medically transitioning for the last 2 years, but my process of getting to that point has taken me 10 years. Everything I've been through, the hours I've spent at my lowest point, the lowest point you can get to, everything I've given up, every challenge and every hurdle I've gone through. I didn't do that to try and take away somebody's position on the C team of a netball club in the Southeast Netball League. You know, like that's not that. I didn't go through all of that to do that. That's not why anybody transitions. I make a purposeful point is I will never speak about being trans as if it's a globally shared identity. Like my experience is my experience. I have my own micro privileges. I've got a supportive family, for example. I've got Helen and Chloe. And other people don't have those. So I have my own micro privileges that mean my story is unique to me and somebody else's trans story. But there's certain things that resonate. And one of those things is the absolute hell you get to before you transition. Is a shared thing, and we don't go through that to win at sport. Honestly, that's my 5 penny worth.
I mean, thank you for providing what will be a perfect social media clip there, and probably hopefully the one that gets the most likes and most views, and put it to the top of the account. Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it, that people think that, and not to think. If we take the steps now to be more inclusive to trans athletes, maybe people won't have to go quite to those same depths of hell in their transition.
Absolutely.
Looking towards the club future, I saw that you had links on the link tree to Cymric Cubs and Net Active. Yeah. And you were saying about Net Active often having players that kind of coming back to the game after time out. So I'm assuming there's quite a few mums there that have stopped playing to have a child and come back. Are both those elements of the club geared up to be inclusive towards mums?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously with the Net Active, there's a lot of older women as well that wouldn't necessarily want to play competitively anyway, but they still want to enjoy netball. So there's quite a few of those in the Net Active. And then Cymric Cubs is for the children. We want to look into children as well. And originally, I believe it was like under 16s we were going to start with. But I would love to have the younger ones where we can have boys and girls as well. Because my son used to play for a different club, but he was the only boy there. And I think that put him off a little bit then, and he didn't want to go, but it was really sad because he enjoyed being there. So if we can get it to a point where lots of boys are playing netball as well, that would be great. That's like the long-term goal for us. And then obviously that feeds into our mixed netball then, and we can keep it going for however long. And hopefully by that time, Wales Netball will have a mixed league up and running. And then we can also put into that, which would be great for us, wouldn't it?
I think my kids come along to the netball sessions. They come along to the Saturdays as well. Can often be heard stood on chairs shouting over the balcony. They can't quite, my kids are only 2 and 4, so they can't quite say Cymric yet. But they say go Reds because we're often the only red team out there. So yeah, they can often be heard throughout the court. Gethin, my eldest, the other week asked to go to bed early so that he could get ready for netball. So they come along to the training sessions, and we all chip in. You know, there's lots of mums that have childcare issues, and we all just work together. We all know what it's like to be a mum with kids that come along. So I think
that was most important for me. Like obviously I touched on, I came back, I moved to England and had my son, and then came back, and obviously didn't feel like I could necessarily get back into netball because of the environment that I went back into. So obviously I always have quite openly the conversation with people that if you need to bring your children to training or matches, there will always be someone on the side at some point. We will help you. I don't want people not to come to netball because of that. Because obviously I was a single mother at the time. I had had postnatal depression, and netball was my escape. So if someone had taken that away from me, I dread to even think where I would have ended up. So I don't want to put a barrier in place for those people as well. And the club does offer different payment plans as well if you are struggling financially.
Yeah, I saw that on
that was a massive thing for us. Again, when I was on my own, I wouldn't have been able to afford to play. So it's just about breaking down barriers as well for people to be able to come into the sport. That was a big thing for us.
Yeah, I mean, it is such a barrier, isn't it? But it'd be kind of got an image in my head of you getting to a point as a club where you've got the people's kids training on one court while you're training on another, and that would be hopefully would just be make it so much easier for people to get involved and grow the sport of netball at the same time. Yeah, I mean it kind of speaks to that inclusivity and support that so obviously runs through the whole of the club, which is it's great to hear about. And I saw that you have just gone past the 1,000 followers mark on Instagram. Is that did you have a little celebration as social media manager when you did that?
Yes, I did. So I've been aiming for that for a while. Because obviously you see, once we started, other clubs then jumped on the social media bandwagon, and it's almost quite addictive that you want, like, you have to be better and have to do these things. And I find it personally a little bit frustrating when you get copycats of your clubs. I find that really difficult. But again, it just pushes you to be better and come up with new ideas all the time. And like we've had a rebranding on certain things on the social media. So yeah.
What would you say is the vision for the club? Where would you like to be in 5 years' time as a netball club in South Wales?
That's a big one. Obviously, we would like to grow the mixed side of our netball. And hopefully, like, if Wales Netball aren't going to start a league, perhaps start our own. We've discussed doing that as well. Grow a lot more members. Obviously, if we can get a few more, if we can grow the diversity in the club, that would be great as well. I don't know, inclusion officer, what would...
More openly queer people being in netball in 5 years' time. I think that would be a big one for me. It's just more gender diversity. You know, netball should be a sport for everyone. Is a sport for everyone. That 5 years for me would be about getting more diversity within netball. Whether that comes from the mixed, whether that comes from just people being more comfortable and more open with their own identity, creating that safe space where people can be openly queer in sport would be amazing. Yeah,
I mean, let's hope this is the last season that you could say, if you played, you would be the only trans player in the league.
That'd be amazing.
I saw Cardiff Dragons put up on their Instagram as in the football team, not the netball team, but up on their Instagram that they'd had their first all trans and non-binary kickabout.
Amazing.
And yeah, I wonder if kind of something like that for you with Cymric would be something that you'd love to be able to say is we've had a game and everyone that was on the court.
That would be amazing for me, I think. That would be mission accomplished. We did have an all-queer netball team at Cymric's last mixed tournament. We fielded an entirely queer team.
Great.
And that was really nice. That was really something. And it felt special being part of it with everybody around, all of us, most of us, because I had only just started at the club then when that first came out, because that was the summer one, so I didn't know what I was doing. I still don't, but I have more of an idea now. But everybody else, like some of them, we had about 2-3 that had played before. The rest had never really
just
played.
New to it,
so it was a good laugh. It was a really good laugh, and it was nice to have that sort of solidarity and that safe shared identity.
Yeah.
So if we could field an entire queer team in a league or an entirely gender non-conforming team in a mixed tournament, that'd be amazing.
Yeah,
that'd be incredible.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking there as you said that I don't know how I'd feel if I at some point played on a tag rugby team or a contact rugby team where I knew that everyone on the team was queer. That would be incredible to me. I know I'd cry. That would definitely happen. But I think if anyone's listening to this and they're wondering about joining a netball club, they'd be mad at this point not to be like, Cymric Netball Club is clearly the place for me to go. But if there is someone who's listening who's queer and not sure about joining, they're trans and they're not sure about joining, they're a single mum and they're not sure about joining, what would you say to them so that they don't end up having a message in their drafts for 3 weeks before they feel comfortable to reach out and get in touch about joining the club?
I'd be interested to see what you say, because obviously you've been on the other end of it. So,
what would I say? I'm going to sound like a cheese magnet if I keep going. But essentially, you're not going to be the only queer person in Cymric. You're not going to be the only trans person in Cymric. You're not going to be the only single mum in Cymric. You're not going to be the only survivor of domestic abuse. You're not going to be the only tall person. You're not going to be the shortest person. You're not going to be on your own by joining our team and joining Cymric, and you'll be welcomed. And I think, Chloe said, her and Helen are very good at seeing people's individual merits and skills, and there is a place for you in the team. There's a place for you wherever that role is and wherever your skills lie. We will find it, and you will find your place. You'll find your home.
Alex, I'd love, whenever I'm not feeling confident about something, I'd love to be able to just call you up and you say, give me a pep talk like that. And I would be like, right, I can do this. It's fine. That's a beautiful message. Chloe, I mean, it's hard to follow that.
It's hard to beat that now, isn't it? Yeah, it was basically everything Alex just said. But, we will support you no matter what. Whatever's happening outside of netball as well, we just want you to be able to come there, have a bit of respite from everything. And it does help massively with mental health. We've both experienced that ourselves. Everyone in the club has experienced that at one point or another. And just don't be scared. Like take the leap, and we will be there to support you. It's not as scary as it sounds from the outside. Yeah.
Well, Alex and Chloe, it's been absolutely fantastic to have you on the podcast. I genuinely have enjoyed this episode so much, talking to the two of you, and I think you're two very inspirational people. And from what I've heard about Helen, I think we are probably going to have to get her on at some
Oh my
point.
God,
Absolutely.
absolutely. A podcast all by herself, I think, to be honest.
Yeah.
She is.
Perhaps you could get her Breaking Binaries
Yes.
co-person with her.
Yeah.
That would be great.
Yeah, for sure. Would be really keen to do that. And I hope everyone that's listened to this episode or watched it on YouTube has really enjoyed it as well. Do reach out to Cymric Netball Club on social media if you're interested in joining a club, and do follow us on our socials as well and listen along to future episodes that we have.